Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 54.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with Cena Block. She's an expert on organization, time management, and other things to help your family be more productive. She's got some great ideas for high school and college students on how they can be more productive and create their workspaces and keep their college plans organized. She also has some information on how the rest of the family can also help the student learn to be more organized. Matter of fact, she gave me a little bit of advice on how to help my son with his overflowing backpack. So you can catch that in this episode and a whole lot more. As always, we have show notes available at tamingthehighcostofcollege/54. And in those notes, we'll also have a bunch of productivity apps that she mentions as great options for putting on your phone to help your students stay organized as well. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. All right, today I'm sitting down with Cena Block. She is a productivity expert and has a great website and podcast and all kinds of great information that help people get organized. Welcome, Cena.
Thanks, Brad. It's great to be here.
All right, so before we jump into all your great information, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to do what you do?
I would be happy to. Sure. I'm actually a business coach, and I have a business called sanespaces.com, and I focus specifically on moms in business, people who are either on their second career or have taken some time off to be with kids and are relaunching. So I usually focus on helping systematize, get people organized, and get people better managed with their time so that they can make more time for living. Moms and moms in business, I believe, are the most busy people on the planet. And so we work a lot on helping them streamline, getting them the support they need so they can focus in on serving clients and selling their services. And I got here because I had a long history as a human resources training professional and took some time off myself to be home with my kids. It was after a restructure. I worked in the wireless industry, and I was a professional mom, traveling a lot, juggling a busy management job and a career. And I kind of got to burnout and went through a restructure, and I got restructured, and I was very thankful for the opportunity because I got to stay home with my kids for a while. And it really helped to make me feel like I was doing my part as a mom. But I also, after a couple of years of just being home, realized that I had a lot more to give and I wanted to give back. And so I launched a business. And I originally launched sanespaces.com as an organizing business, a professional organizer. But after about 4 or 5 years, it led me down the path of realizing that what I really wanted to do was coaching. And I really wanted to coach other moms who wanted to start businesses. It's really rough, and most businesses actually fail. And I really wanted to commit to helping women who had professional expertise and a high earning potential be able to offer their services in a fashion that was both profitable but flexible. Mm-hmm. And so that's what Sane Spaces has become. And along the way, I developed an assessment tool for the industry called the Time and Space Style Inventory. And I hope we get to talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. We did talk about it a little bit, and I'm very interested in it, so I think our listeners will be as well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the typical busy mom that's got high school kids that are looking to get off to college. I think time management is something, one of your expertises is an issue for most families as you roll into the late junior and senior year of college planning. Mm-hmm. What do you think as far as how can parents help students manage their time, and how do parents manage their own time when it comes to all the extracurriculars that are happening at that time?
Well, having a student who just finished his freshman year of college, I really can empathize, and I have a freshman in high school who will be a sophomore. So I have 2 rising sophomores right now. And I think the first thing that is always a shock to those of us who are in this life stage is how fast it happens, how quickly it seems that these kids move through middle school and right up into high school, and boom, it's time to start looking at colleges and get them ready. So one of the things that I think really helps with time management is just the whole idea of creating routines. And you know, I'm a mom in business and my kids are very, very busy. And so if we didn't have kind of our downbeat routines that were set, that really were how we managed life around our home, it would have been really, really difficult. But and every time we go on vacation or we get knocked off because of different things, I always feel like coming back to the downbeat of the routines is really, really important. So I always recommend for people I coach, as well as any parents who are dealing with this, is to just create routines, anything that is a maintenance piece of your living situation, shopping, you know, cleaning the house, doing the laundry, certain chores. Things have a cyclicalness about them, and maintenance is maintenance. You have to do it often. So when you have things that you repeat, if you can create a routine, it's really very, very helpful.
Okay,
and,
can you describe a routine? I mean, when you say create a routine, is something you write down? It's something you do? What?
Yeah, I actually have. I think especially for kids, if you're teaching these skills and you're wanting to transfer skills, right now in the next room, I work at home, and in the next room, I have my son working on a plan for his entire summer work. He's going to take 2 AP classes next year. He's got a lot of work to do. He's got 2 book reports. He's got a whole bunch of stuff that's on his agenda, as well as going to camp and fitting in all these other extracurricular things that he does. So we start with planning, and we typically do a quarterly plan for our family, which includes tons of information. We always start with our family first. So anything that is like a family holiday or a family celebration or any time off. And then we layer in the school calendar, things like I have musicians and drama kids. So we layer in concerts or special events and dates. They also have been involved in sports, so we put those into our schedule. And then we revisit that schedule every week. We sit down on Sunday night and we pull out our calendars and we talk about what the expectations are for the week. And then that pushes us into our meal planning. And our meal planning, I have about 25 go-to meals that typically repeat themselves. We have taco night, we have chicken, we have all kinds of different things that we'll put on our meal plan. But that also then leads into a pretty count-onable and repeatable shopping list. So I believe it really starts with creating a big master plan and then moving through that. I also have a routine for laundry. So I do laundry on Mondays and Thursdays, and the kids know that. And so if they need things clean for the weekend, or if they want a certain outfit to wear, it's got to be in the laundry, or they'll do it themselves. One other thing, I feel very strongly about evening and morning routines. Teens tend to always want to sleep in because they seem to always be sleep deprived. So we try to do making the lunch at night, or at least pieces of the lunch at night, and then making mornings easier so that when it's time to wake up, they can either have their smoothie or an eggs or oatmeal. Things are just easier to put together. We also have different locations in the house that are kind of set up to work for them. They do their hair in the downstairs bathroom, they brush their teeth upstairs, whatever. There are different things that they do, so we set them up for easy, quick access and having everything that they need.
Okay, great. So then another thing that you mentioned here is time blocks and keeping track of how long things really take. I think a lot of people I've heard the term time blindness, where they say, oh, that's just 20 minutes. And everything is just 20 minutes, but it isn't really.
No, No, well, I think that one of the big gaps for most kids, and especially teens, is really making time concrete. And they first of all, I think with the dawn of digital, many kids today don't really realize the concreteness of how time passes, because everything that they have to access time is just right now. It's just right now. It's this time. Digital time happens immediately. So just right now, look at the clock and they have what time it is. But when I grew up, we learned time in segments of like a pizza pie or an apple pie, right? There was a quarter of an hour and there was a half of an hour and there. So that concreteness has become very abstract for kids. So what they don't get to see is time passing. And, it's also just a matter of maturity. Estimating kids tend to underestimate everything. They just don't have the experience and the wisdom. It's not their fault. They just don't have the experience and wisdom. And they tend to want to do what they want to do. So they'll put off starting things often. So yeah, how do you get better at it? Well, you need to kind of take a look at how long things take. I mean, one of my sons, we've timed him in the shower, in the bathroom, getting ready in the morning, and we just say, look, if this equals 20 minutes, this equals 30 minutes. And so you have to plan backward from this estimate. What you think is 5 minutes is really 30 minutes. So you can't continue to say, oh, I got 5 minutes, I'll be on time. You won't.
Right. Well, absolutely. That makes sense.
Yeah, so estimating for many kids, teens especially, it's just something, it's a new-ish skill. And, I know most teens just don't want to be held accountable to that. So we've attempted in many different ways. I don't think I would have realized the challenge if I didn't have my own teens, because for many adults, this seems like it's a no-brainer. But we learn this over time. And typically by making mistakes along the way. So time estimating, I would say, if you approach it as a parent as a skills gap and just try to coach kids and really use actual examples to help them, they do get better at it typically, but most often I think the gap is in failure to start soon enough.
Right. Okay.
So that moves into another technique, which I call time mapping. And with kids, 30 minutes can be a time block, and it works really well for things like activities. They're also kind of set up for it based on how, in the U.S., how schools work. Classes are usually 35 to 45 minutes. So they're kind of predisposed to that segment of concentration or effort being channeled. So if you can work with your student to think about how many time blocks will this take, and I used to do it when the kids were young. I remember, when they used to watch shows like Barney, we would say, oh, well, this is 2 Barney episodes, or this is, how long is this wait going to be? Well, it's going to be 2 Barney episodes. And when they were real little, I would say, two sunrises or 2 moons, and those kinds of things, creating a concrete idea for your kids to make time more concrete, and just helping coach them is really a process. I think so many parents just get frustrated and angry, and the behavior just never really gets addressed. It just turns into kind of a meltdown. So I think it's really important with teens for them to really start to own it. And I believe that happens somewhere along the way. Some kids are just naturally good at it and will plan it out, but most kids won't.
Right. So that's managing time. What about managing stuff? I mean, let me give you an example. I have a grade school kid, and every 3 or 4 weeks, we probably have to dump out his backpack and say, all right, take care of this, because there will quite literally be 3 inches of raggedy paper that are past due assignments, graded assignments, things he's supposed to keep track of, things he doesn't need anymore. But he just stuffs it in his backpack and forgets about it until the backpack is almost, busting at the seams and he can't pick it up.
Yeah, yeah.
But that seems to be his way. Can you talk a little bit about how some people are neat and some people aren't, and what to do, how that all comes together, and is it learned?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, I think part of it is learned. I mean, being kind of a little overly attentive to this as just my own style, I think I'm probably more particular than most parents. But I always say start the school year out with an organized approach. So literally we go shopping for school supplies. This is no longer true for my college age student, but certainly has been true all through his life. And the skills have transferred because he's doing it for himself now. But we would go to back to school shopping, and then we would always set up notebooks and binders. I think a lot of times kids don't understand that there is a life cycle to paper, and sometimes kids are not given the authority or don't take the authority to get rid of things. They keep the good grades, or they sometimes even keep the bad grades because they don't really know that they can trash it if they want, And so I think it started early on. A lot of times parents think they have to keep everything. And when I was organizing in a residential place, I would notice that a lot of parents will keep a lot of things, and there are techniques to deal with that. There are different approaches. One of my style preferences for the organizing side is called a saver. And a saver is typically known for keeping everything, but really what it is just postponing decisions. And sometimes savers are triggered by emotional stuff, but many times they're just never taught what they can get rid of and what is important to keep. And, in this day and age, with everything being electronic and reference and resourceability being so instant on the internet, the need for having a paper product is just, it's not there as much. But many of us, at least, if you're in your later 30s through your mid 60s, we were taught to keep everything. And depending on your background and expertise, we were taught to just, there's more stuff. Let me just create another file cabinet, and stash it away. But I believe that paradigm is shifting. And I think it's shifting quite rapidly as kids are so able to reference what they want electronically. They can find anything they want online with a quick Google search.
Right.
But
I think that might also be a hindrance, don't you think? Because they're so used to that, when they do get that important piece of paper, they kind of don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I think creating criterion for what to keep is really important, and walking your kids through that is part of the planning process. And then setting them up with a filing system for those important papers. We're talking about getting kids ready for college. There are certain things they're going to need. They're going to need service hours. They're going to need awards and recognition. They're going to need the ability to create a college essay that speaks to their past and is authentic and is well written. So having some sample work on hand is a good idea. And those are papers that probably are things that could be kept. So it's just interesting. I'm watching my, my college-aged son work in a totally minimalist electronic system, scanning everything. It's a whole different paradigm. So I think it really does depend on how you start. But most kids, especially the one like you're talking about with your son and his backpack, if he doesn't have a system for keeping what he needs and decision criterion for what's important, then that's probably a gap. And if you could talk with him about it and work paper by paper, at this point, it will save you probably a lot of heartache and headache further down the road.
Right. So it sounds like one of the recommendations is just kind of coach him through and teach him a system that would work for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember, storage is different than retrieval, right? So storage, we are living in the backlash of huge consumerism, and people have spent extraordinary amounts of money storing items that they never use. So one of the things that we need to get better at is really understanding that keeping the items that we want and use is really what's important, not keeping everything, because that doesn't differentiate and it tends to just overwhelm you.
Right. Okay. So I guess one of the tools you offer I want to get to is the assessment tool that you mentioned. So let's talk a little bit about that. Would that be appropriate for parents or students or both?
Mm-hmm. It's really appropriate for anybody who wants to better understand their natural way of going about managing time and organizing space. It's called the Time and Space Style Inventory. And as I had said earlier, when I got into the organizing field, coming from HR and coming from management training specifically, every class that I ever took kind of started with an assessment tool. You know, if it was a delegation class, we would do an overall assessment on how they're doing with delegation and the critical skills that are necessary to delegate. Or if it was a coaching class, how to coach for improved performance, we would do an assessment. So when I got into organizing, I was looking for what is a level-setting assessment tool for managing time? How do people know what to do? How do they know how they're performing? And what is a level-setting instrument for managing space? And I found a book that had been out of print for several years, contacted the author, and I worked with her to update everything and create an online assessment tool. It's 84 questions. It's called the Time and Space Style Inventory, and it's written in a way that by answering these questions, you'll get a style report. I call it your flow finder, like what will help you get into flow. And you'll get a response in your results that have to do with what you are dominant in. Earlier, we were talking about some of the style preferences for organizing, and organizing space has to do with how you make decisions about items, how you like to arrange things, and how you tolerate disorder. Are you somebody that can walk into a room and be completely comfortable if it looks like a tornado hit, or are you somebody who would really prefer it to not look like that? So there are 6 style preferences for organizing space, and there are 6 style preferences for organizing time, and they're connected to these behaviors. So it's really written in a way that is very appropriate for high school students and college students. In this next several months, I will be rolling it out to a couple different college beta testing sites. And so right now it's being used by organizers and coaches with their clients who are really struggling with managing time and organizing space, because it gives you the opportunity to see what is natural for you, accept yourself. A lot of people that struggle in time and struggle with organizing have a huge shame button. And it really is a difficult space for them because, you know, they question whether or not there's something wrong with them often, especially if they've had lifelong struggles with it. They question why some people are and why some people aren't. And this tool kind of just gives people a place to start to say, okay, if this is my style preference, these are the things that get in my way, and here's how I can move forward. Here are some of the things that will help me move forward. So yeah, it's appropriate certainly for an advanced middle school to high school and up.
Okay, and then to take that, we would go to a website, and then there's a fee. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the website is sanespaces.com and /TSSI. That's Time Space Style Inventory. And you can go there, and there's 2 levels. You can either decide to try it. There's a free sample, which gives you a very, very limited peek into a couple of the style preferences. But it just shows you that it's legitimate and hopefully whets your appetite to go ahead and buy it. And I would love to extend a special promotional coupon for your listeners today if they want to buy it. It's a $37 product, but I'd really like to offer a $10 coupon. I know how it is to get kids through college, and so the code is ACCELERATE, all in caps. We'll have that. I'm sure we'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, we will put all the links and the code and all that stuff will be in the show notes at Taming the High Cost of College. So yeah, great. So then you get this result, so it not only does it kind of tell you where you are, but it gives you some hints and help on how to get better. Is that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'll get a full 9-page report which describes all of the style preferences, but then you also get access to the hub, and it's a membership site. You'll get 2 months access, about 60-day access to all of the resources there. So there are video interviews, there are downloadable templates and checklists, especially for the time management style preferences, because a lot of times the different time style preferences will need different ways of seeing the big picture or staying focused. So all of that stuff is available with the purchase to the tool.
Okay, great. So Let's talk a little bit more about maybe some specifics of where organization might come into play, which is planning and preparing for college. So things like essays and applications and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And this was a big eye opener for me when I went through this with my son. But one of the things that I did is I created like a master file box with him, and that's another tool that we'll have available. I'm going to share that checklist because, oh my gosh, did it save a lot of time. You talked about your son and his backpack. One of the processes of creating a good retrieval system is knowing what's going to be important. So I have a quick download, which is called Savvy Students, the College-Bound Master File System. And it's pretty much you can either make it an 8 to 9 tab file system and get yourself a nice box, or have your student pick out a box. And each of the labels of each tab will be helpful, but getting started right away, even if your student is in the middle of high school now, it still will help you. But I created a tab that had every year of their high school, so 9th grade through 12th grade, and then created a timeline too, because that junior and senior year, they're bouncing through PSATs and SATs and when those are due, and some of the kids are working on, especially if they're college bound, they're probably taking advanced placement tests. So having all that stuff together and having a file box to kind of keep it when it comes home is really helpful. Another tab that I suggest is a service tracking tab. I mean, I have Boy Scouts, so they tracked things like community service and volunteer hours and working with the church and working with the food pantry and all the different things that they have to keep on track. So there's that piece. Also, kids are involved in a lot of extracurriculars, and when they get to the college applications, they need to kind of have that available easily. Makes it much easier if they can keep track of how much time they spend in clubs and extracurricular activities and sports.
Okay.
And you can read the rest of it on the download.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have links to that as well in the show notes. But we're getting time to wrap up here. But before I let you go, I noticed one other thing that I'd love to talk about is some of the quick ideas you have about tools and techniques that might be helpful. I know you got some apps and websites and stuff. Can you speak a little bit about some of those things?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, of course, I always recommend my assessment tool. But one of the things that really helps, if you have a student that's really struggling with time, there's a product called Time Timer. It's available at timetimer.com. And it creates kind of, they have different products that make abstract time concrete. So it's a timer watch, and they can put it on and they can set the timer and watch the time disappear. I always suggest wall calendars, and then the apps that go along with wall calendars. Again, making time concrete, writing it down in a visual system, but then transferring it over for the robust reminders that are available for online tools like Google Calendar and iCal. An app that is working pretty well for my college student is called Todoist, and he puts all of his assignments from his syllabus in there, and he gives himself triggers, and he can postpone things and remind himself. But it's a pretty robust app, and it's free. I'm also a huge fan of the Google suite of products, both Sheets and Google Drive, for kids, because many kids are using it just to interface in their high school groups and so forth. But you can also use it as a family, and you can keep a lot of your references and resources online. So there are also some apps that help kids that struggle with time. One is called selfcontrolapp.com, getcoldturkey.com, macfreedom.com, and anti-social.com. So depending on where your kid is kind of getting their time sucked away from them, you can check out those apps. And a search for productivity apps in either the Google Play Store or the App Store is really helpful. Again, kids have different style preferences. I have one that loves apps and one that wants paper. So, kids will have different style preferences. Apps will work for some of them, but they really, in order to make them work, is you have to use them. It's not going to help you just to download them.
Yes.
You know?
All right. Well, that was a lot of great information. Before I let you go, can you tell us how people can learn more about you or get in contact with you?
Absolutely. You're welcome to find me on sanespaces.com or send me an email at Cena, Cena, at sanespaces.com at any time. On my website, there's a ton of information, especially to support people, moms who are juggling busy careers and juggling businesses. And so that's who I typically coach, but you can also link right over to the time and space style inventory from that, sanespaces.com/TSSI. So send me an email, connect with me on Facebook. You can look me up on Twitter at sanespaces.com and Google+.
All right. Well, great. I appreciate all the good information you provided today, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Brad.
All right. That was a great interview with Cena. Hopefully you learned a ton about staying organized and how you can help your students stay organized. Don't forget she did provide that code for us, so we're able to go to her website and get access to her assessment tools at a reduced price. As always, we appreciate it if you can give us a review in iTunes. So you can go to iTunes and go to Taming the High Cost of College and leave a star review or a written review. And we're also available on Stitcher. That's all we have for this week. I appreciate you listening. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.